Happy Mother's Day, First Church. Again, my name is Kristin. I am Pastor John's wife. And normally I am up in Hebron. And I just got to say hi to Hebron. I am so blessed to be a part of that community. And I love every single Sunday. Usually Pastor John kind of says a little bit of an embarrassing story about our family, about me somehow. And I always love the side glances like, are you okay with that? I just want to let you know, I always give him permission, and I'm actually the one who critiques his messages every single Sunday, but I am so grateful for John, not only as my husband, but our pastor. Every time I'm asked to speak, whether it's Mother's Day or sisterhood, I'm always reminded how much work it takes to put time and energy and prayer into a message, and he does it so faithfully every single Sunday. So I'm just so grateful for him as our pastor, and more importantly to us, we are just so grateful to be a part of this church community. We have been so blessed by Hebron, and we feel we couldn't feel like we have a better church, a better community, and it is just so amazing to be a part of it. So thank you guys for the way that you have just loved our family through almost a decade. Can you believe that? It's going to be 10 years this summer, which just blows my mind. Time is going fast. I'm getting old. But anyways, so I want to let you guys know, if you didn't already know, we have 4 kids. And honestly, being a mom is all I ever wanted to be as a little girl. Now, God has opened my capacity now that I am working at Hebron. I didn't know that was a dream, but I feel like I'm living the dream now. But being a mom was a thing, and being a stay-at-home mommy was what I wanted to do. Now, that was something when I was 15 years old that I thought was in jeopardy, that I may never get to do, because when I was 15, I actually got really, really sick, and I went to the doctor on 3 different occasions because I was having a fever, I was having a stomach ache. So the first time I went to the doctor, they're like, she has a stomach flu, no biggie, go home, rest up. So a week later, we went back in because things weren't getting better, and I was still having abdominal pain. So they're like, well, maybe it's a bladder infection, so put you on some antibiotics, you should be good in a week. But I wasn't getting better. So then I went to the doctor a 3rd time, and this is a true story. I went to the doctor the 3rd time, and because I was so sick, I wasn't eating. So the woman was like, 15-year-old eating disorder, right? Like, clearly, that's what I have. Now, the nurses in the room are probably thinking, you know what I had. But my mom, finally, she gets a second opinion, because she's like, something's wrong with my daughter. So I get the second opinion, and I had appendicitis. It had been ruptured for 3 weeks. I was going septic. So at the end of all of this, I was in the hospital for days. I have a good-sized scar on my tummy. It was an emergency surgery. I also lost an ovary, lost some other things. It was a pretty big deal, and I still remember overhearing the doctor talking to my mom saying, hey, she might not be able to have kids when she's older. It looked really bad. But I still hoped, dreamed, and wondered. And before I move on with this story, I just want to take a second to acknowledge that every woman's journey to motherhood looks differently. For me, God would eventually open my womb, but even if he didn't, he is still the God who hears. And if you're praying and hurting, I want you to know he is indeed hearing your prayers and writing your story in a way that may look different than you hoped or dreamed, but nevertheless, he's answering them in a perfect expression of his love for you. And I love our church family because it's so incredible to see different women at different stages and ages being spiritual moms, raising up the next generation of women to love and know Jesus. But for every woman in the room, whatever you're struggling with today, I just want you to know that you're seen, you're loved. Keep praying and keep hoping. But fast forward, I'm not 15 anymore. Let's fast forward until I'm about 20. Eventually, I meet John, the crazy youth pastor at the church I was attending. He was confident and godly. We also had this great friendship, and I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this man serving God. And we got married really fast, and we tried for kids almost right away. Now, we had tried for about a year, and I don't know if any ladies can relate to this, but I spent so much money on dollar store pregnancy tests. I was like, I'm excited. Somebody hooted and hollered. Yes, I got my shopping basket, and I was like, thank you. I'm just going to take all these. I remember taking test after test, and it felt like disappointment after disappointment. And I felt like it was just confirming my fears. I'm defective. Something's wrong with me. I only have one ovary. Maybe this dream is lost forever. Now, around this time, I was relatively new to faith, and I remember sitting at my desk at work, and I was on the brink of tears. This is after 8 months of trying, and I was just like, God, would you please do a miracle? Get me pregnant. I don't know. I actually don't know what I mean. I was just probably just saying all sorts of stuff, but I was really emotionally, and I was praying so hard that God would give me a baby. And this moment was one of the first times I heard from God. And I remember I was putting stuff in my work bag, packing up, and I hear out of the blue, you're going to get pregnant. You're going to have a girl, and you're going to name her Isabel. Now, this is the moment I was like, I think I've officially gone crazy. Like, this has reached new levels. I'm talking to myself now, what is this? So I just kind of ignored it. I'm like, maybe I ate some bad pizza. This is weird. So clear as day, second time, you're going to get pregnant. It's going to be a girl, and you're going to name her Isabel. Now, at this point, I'm officially a little like, what is going on? So, Isabel, girls, we have our baby names picked out since out of the womb. Like, I was like, thank you. This is not a name that I ever had written down as something that I wanted to name a child. I'm like, maybe it has to be someone with this name because this is weird. So I boot my computer monitor back up, typed in Ask Jeeves or Yahoo, whatever the search engine was at the time, and I was like, baby name meaning Isabel. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. It popped up and it said, Isabel means God's promise. And in that moment, I was like, oh my goodness, I think God just is telling me he's promising me this is going to happen. I got in the car and I was like stalker calling John. He was probably leading something in the youth ministry. And I was like, he's like, what? Are you on fire? Is a bear chasing you? And I'm like, no, but you won't believe what happened. And he's probably like, my wife has officially gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Like, what is this? But church, God really spoke to me in that moment because that was 8 months in. 3 months later, I got pregnant. 9 months later, it was a girl. And I still remember Pastor John being like, well, I guess we have no choice than to name her Isabel. So we did. Her name is Isabel Sotoko after John's mom. But John and I now have this baby. And let me tell you, she was the hardest baby ever. All she did was cry, just constantly. If she was awake, which she almost always was, she was crying. I feel like John and I just constantly had to do these moves like, okay, it's okay. Maybe if we rock her hard enough, she'll stop crying. And I didn't have much help. John's parents lived across the Twin Cities in Minnesota at the time. My family had its own things going on. And I still remember my family visiting probably in the first couple of weeks or two, and they stayed for 20 minutes. I have all sisters, and my mom was like, all right, this is good. We're going to go get pedicures. And I was like, wait, no, don't leave me. I was like, please take me with you. Like, we ain't bringing that baby with us, So they left, and I just remember crying. I was like, is this the rest of my life? Like, this is so hard. But here's the thing. Don't feel bad for me because I did everything wrong. They say you never wake a sleeping baby. Oh, that poor child. I just woke her up all the time. I was like, maybe if she stays up all day, maybe she'll sleep in the night. So she's probably crying because she's sleep deprived. People would tell me hey, have you heard about schedules? And I'd be like, yeah, that may work for you, but not for me. Like, what? And anyone who knows me, I like to run to the beat of my own schedule. I was like, nah, that's fine. No, not doing that. My moms and sisters probably left so fast because they're like, this girl's guarded and fragile, literally drowning and refusing for help. That's a recipe for disaster right there, right? And I could receive advice about other things. But when it came to this, when it came to one of the biggest callings on my life, I wouldn't hear any feedback. I felt like if they coach me, what they're really telling me is I'm a bad mom. Now, to add insult to injury, there's this super godly lady at church. Her name was Mary. She had 11 kids, and they were the most beautiful, amazing family. I want you to picture it. It was like Sound of Music, Von Trapp family. Like, I swear they sung farewell when they went to bed, right? Like, I was like, is this real life, right? And she saw that I was struggling, okay? And I remember she wrote me the longest Facebook message, okay? You probably know where this is going. And I was like, talking about babies and schedules. And now she is pretty qualified, and I was pretty irritated. I was like, I don't even want to read this. And John was like, tap, tap, tap. Hey, babe, like, you want to read that? Like, I was like, you probably put her up to this, didn't you? I was mad at him. I was mad at her. I was like, I'm not reading this. She doesn't know my baby. This works for her angel child, but not mine. Like, I was just creating this narrative that was kind of crazy. Now, looking back, why would I ever think that I knew how to be a mom? I had absolutely no experience. No clue. Why would I take this woman's advice as a personal attack? She was just trying to pass on hard-earned wisdom. It was foolish of me to reject her feedback, but I couldn't receive it because I felt condemned. I felt like everyone was saying I was a bad mom, which, to be clear, no one was saying, but they should have, for real, because I was being a bad mom in areas. Why was I so afraid of that statement? To be honest, I've been a bad mom a lot of times, right? Bad mom when I send my kids to school, when they haven't done their homework. Bad mom the list could go on, but bad mom have you ever hugged your kid goodnight and you're like, good night? Oh, well, when was the last time you showered? Like, oh, it was a week or two ago. It's like, what? Bad mom sending my kids not bathed for a week or two to school. I'm a bad mom when I lose my temper, rage at my kids. I'm a bad mom when I don't keep my promises. Again, the list could go on. But I think something important that I want you to hear is admitting I'm a bad mom sometimes is critical to becoming a better mom. Why would I assume that being a bad mom means I'm a bad mom all the time? This reminds me of a story in the Bible. It's about a man named Moses. Love him, right? He's a leader of the nation of Israel. He is just starting out, sort of like a new mom, right? Trying to keep his head above water. He is leading this newborn nation, very needy, lots of struggles. And I want us to turn to Exodus 18:13. It says, the next day, Moses took his seat to hear the people's disputes against each other. They waited before him from morning till evening. Now, this guy reminds me of me as a mom of a newborn, morning till evening, trying to take care of a child, right? It goes on in 14. It says, when Moses' father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he asked, what are you really accomplishing here? Why are you trying to do this all alone while everyone stands around you from morning till evening? Now, this is pretty bold. We read it like, maybe some of you are like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. But I want you to put yourself in Moses' shoes, okay? Can you imagine an in-law, whether it's mother-in-law or father-in-law, talking to you like this? Moses is leading a nation. This is as important to him, probably more important to him than being a mom is to me. And what his father-in-law is really saying is, what are you even accomplishing here? Why are you doing this alone? Dude, you are basically wasting everyone's time. Now, here's the thing. Jethro, the father-in-law, he does know more than Moses about leading. He is successful. He is older and more experienced. And Moses, he has a choice, right? He can get defensive, call all his sisters and his mom, right? Talk about how insensitive Jethro is. He can refuse to go over there for Thanksgiving, leave early Christmas dinner, right? Show them. Or he can ask for advice. And I love that Moses goes and asks for the advice. It goes on to say, this is not good. You're going to wear yourself out and the people too. This job, Moses, is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself. Now listen to me and let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you. I love that Jethro, again, he just lays it down and tells it to him straight. You can't handle this. You need to delegate and maybe stop being a control freak, right? He's like, give up control. Appoint some people to help you out. And this would be the foundation of his leadership of this nation and some of the key advice that would make Moses one of, if not the greatest leader the Jewish people in the Old Testament ever had. Now, I remember reading this passage and thinking, wow, it's pretty awesome of Moses. If my father-in-law or mother-in-law talked to me like that, they'd be dead. Right? Like, I don't know, right? But I would have missed out on life-changing help. Why can't I receive advice from wise people? Like, this is what this passage really got me thinking is, look at Moses. Look what God accomplished through him. Why can't I receive advice about the things I care about the most? This was a pattern in my life. When it came to the things I cared about most, I had the smallest capacity to receive coaching or feedback. I wonder if anyone here can relate when it comes to being a mom or a dad, a wife or a husband, a friend or a daughter. How often are you able to receive feedback without getting defensive? To have someone say, I think I see a way you can do it better, or, hey, I see a way that you're not doing that quite right. For me, sadly, the answer at that point in my life, not that often at all. And let's be clear, it's still really hard. And the biggest question I want to talk about today is, why is it so hard to receive feedback for the things most important to us? Being a mom, being a wife, being a daughter, or in our career. I think the answer is idolatry. I read in the Old Testament, and I still remember when I was first a new believer, and I started reading the Bible, and I was reading the Old Testament, and I was like, these Israelites, they sure seem dumb. I mean, they just keep falling into idolatry. God tells them to do something, and then whoops, doing the exact opposite, right? Why do they keep worshiping these silly things? Why are these guys so foolish? Clearly, if I were an Israelite, I would do it better. But here's the truth. They don't fall into idolatry because they're fools. They did it because it's natural. Their proclivity is my proclivity. The reason that the things I love the most are often the toughest to receive feedback for is because I'm worshiping those things. I'm rooting my identity in those things. I define my worth and my value based on how I'm doing in those things. So as a mom, if I fail and I'm having a bad day and I've been rooting my identity in being a good mom, then I'm nothing. As a friend, if I hurt someone or let them down and I've been rooting my identity in being a good friend, then I'm nothing. In my career, if I'm not doing good at it, if I'm not succeeding and I've been rooting my identity in being a Hebron campus director, then if I fail, I guess I'm nothing. As soon as I make this mistake, my capacity to receive feedback, advice, wisdom, my ability to improve in those areas, it literally goes to zero. Because when someone questions that area, I feel like they are questioning me as a person. I love the way Jesus tells it. He tells it to us this way in John 15:5. He says, yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. What this is saying is that I need to be rooted in Jesus. My worth, my value comes from him. I'm not defined by my successes or my failures. Let's be real, it all looks bad compared to the glory of Jesus. When I live in him, his grace defines me alone. But when I root myself in other things, there is no fruit. The results are not good. Check out the statement from Jesus. Anyone who does not remain in me is thrown away like a useless branch and withers. Such branches are gathered into a pile to be burned. It's like, ouch, Jesus, that's harsh. But isn't that the truth? All my medals from soccer in high school, worthless. My social media likes and follows, meaningless. Approval and validation from others, insignificant. All the things that are not Jesus, they don't last. How many moms have we seen they root their identity in being a mom and the kids move on and move out and we are so empty and lost? Now I know maybe you're like, okay, Kristin, how do I do it? I want to root my identity in Jesus, but I'm not even really clear on what you're talking about or what that means. For me, it's really simple, but it's something we have to choose to do every day. We have to walk in God's grace, letting His grace and love define me, not my earthly achievements, not my successes, not my failures, but truly believing that there is absolutely nothing I could do to get God the Father to love me more or love me less. I am His child, and that is it, period. For parents in the room, how much do you wish your kids understood your love? Like, there is nothing you could do that would get me to love you more or love you less. I love you, period. But how much greater is God the Father's love for us? I feel like He must be like us as parents. If you could only get it, if you could only understand my love. But maybe if that seems too ethereal for you, I have 4 truths that help keep me rooted in Jesus and not other things. And if you are like me and you like to take notes, this is the moment, this is the time. So the first truth is daily admitting I'm a sinner. Why is this so hard? We're all here because we believe that we are sinful, right? That we all fall short of God's glorious standard. But church, as soon as we admit that we're not perfect, it is so easy to receive advice. Saying you're wrong, saying you're sorry, it costs us so little, but it gives us so much. But it's just so hard to do sometimes. So often I slip into that mindset that's like, okay, I gotta be perfect, right? And as soon as I go into that mindset, I will live in anxiety of messing up instead of receiving the gratitude and love and joy from being in God's waterfall of grace. Jesus gives me grace. And so when I mess up, it's okay. He doesn't expect me to be perfect, but by admitting I'm a sinner, I'm leaving room for His power to be made perfect in my weakness. I can turn from sin, and when I turn from sin, that means I can get better. This leads me to my second point. I want us to be asking for improvement opportunities in the areas that you value most. I ask John all the time, how can I be a better mom? How can I be a better wife? How can I be a godlier leader? I'm not just asking John what he does or someone else what they do. I'm asking John, who actually sees what I do, for specific coaching and feedback. And if any of y'all know Pastor John in real life, you know this keeps me humble, okay? He gives it to me straight, right? But the payoff is so good. I'm a much better mom. I'm a much better wife. I am a much better follower of Jesus because of it. And a great question to ask yourselves, parents, to start out with is, what do you see in my parenting that needs improvement? Or if you're not a parent, fill in the blank with what you value most. What do you see in my work life that needs improvement? What do you see in our marriage that needs improvement? What do you see in my faith life that needs improvement? But ladies and guys too, don't set a trap. If you're gonna ask, I want you to be ready and willing to receive the truth so that you can be rooted in who God says you are and grow from the improvement opportunities that He's allowing you to have through these people. Number 3, seek out wisdom from wiser, more experienced people. Now, this is different than the last one because you're going to go to people who are farther along and asking key questions. What did you do to get there? We've been taking couples out and just asking, what did you do to have a great relationship with your adult children? Because we don't have adult kids, but I see Christian families and great families in this church. You have amazing relationships with your adult children, and I want that. What did you do to cultivate that? Another great question to ask is, what would you change if you could go back? But again, you don't have to be a parent to ask this question. You could take someone out and ask their wisdom about other things than parenting. They don't need to know you all that well. The people you ask, they just have to have a family and a faith that you respect. It's astonishing to me how rare it is to have people ask these kind of questions. And I'm sharing this with you because I want us to be a generation of women who ask the generation before us so that we can be wise without scars. There is hard-earned wisdom from the generations of Christians that went before us. Why are we not asking? I feel like also, though, I want to make it clear that spiritual maturity can have nothing to do with physical age. We can learn from all generations. It's just we have to be looking for those people in our lives who are rooted in Jesus. Last point, assume the best about unsolicited advice about your kids. That's right. I'm mainly going to be talking to parents in this point, but if you're not a parent, I hope that you will be thinking about how you handle different people coming to you with improvement opportunities. And a lot of times, parents, these are going to be coming from teachers, but I want you to insert who it pertains to most in your life. In-laws, friends, random people at the grocery store. Come on, DeMott, Strachan Van Til, you keep me humble. I get called out all the time at the grocery store, right? But I just want to make it clear. 95% of the time, these people are probably right. I want to say that again. 95% of the time, these people are probably right. There is a truth in what they are saying. These people are not out to get your kids. I want us to assume the best about them. Eat the fish, spit out the bones. It's our job to mine for the truth in what they're saying. And then thank them for the opportunity. For your kids' teachers. Church, they literally went to school for this. We get to use teachers as a resource to help us be better parents. John and I like to ask teachers when they're confronting us about our kids, and let me tell you, I didn't know this, but pastors' kids, whoo, doggy, they are not perfect, okay? We get confronted by teachers all the time. And we love to ask them when they're confronting us about our kids' behavior, where would you place our child percentage-wise in this area of struggle compared to all kids you work with? Or what parenting strategies do you recommend we use to partner with you in helping fix this issue? Or if you were in my shoes, I've literally asked this, what consequence would you give my child at home to help support you in teaching them and raising them in school, right? And then last, but definitely not least, thank you for caring about my child enough to bring this to our attention. It blows my mind how angry my first reaction is when a teacher or someone confronts me about my kid or parenting. Like, for real, you might think, oh, Kristin, like, so sweet, must be easy for you. No, there's like a rage mama bear in here that's like, how dare you put your lips on my child, right? I'm ready to fight when someone says something bad about my kids. But here's the truth. When someone comes to me about my kids, I have to pray before I open my mouth, right? And I have to tell myself, they want my kids to succeed. This is a privilege. What is the truth in what they're saying? They might not be saying I'm a bad mom all the time, but I want to shoot straight, guys. Just maybe in this one area, I've got some room to improve, so give it to me, right? I want to go back to that story of when I was 15 and the doctor was treating me. This leader in my life, they refused to consider other possibilities. We begged her to run others' tests. But this woman, she's like, I know best. And she just assumed I was a cranky teenager with an eating disorder. I know, it's just really, it's a true story. Guys, I was sick and dying, but she would not receive advice. And because of that reason, I almost died. As a mom, as a leader, I think about my kids. I don't want to be like that doctor. I want to be humble and always learning. I want to always be growing in my knowledge, taking advice from godly people, because my kids will always be dealing with the sickness of sin. And moms and spiritual mamas, we are on the front lines, and God is calling us to be rooted in Christ so that we can continue to grow and point our kids, our disciples, to the only cure of their sinfulness and separation from their Creator, which is Jesus Christ. That is our battle cry. But they need to see a mama who is actually following Jesus. I want us to fight, to grow and flourish, abiding in Christ, rooting our identity in Him. Questions for everyone in this room. How often are you able to receive feedback without getting defensive? About being a mom, about being a friend, about being a father, a husband? Who are the mentors in your life that you need to seek out and learn from? Who is farther along? Who has a family and a faith that you want? Ask them out. Ask them questions. Receive their feedback. Do you assume the best about people who come to you with improvement opportunities? Or are you always looking for how they're wrong? How could God use our church and use us Christians if we looked for the truth in what they were saying? We live in such a messed up world. Most studies indicate that we are raising the most anxious, depressed generation ever. This is the most complicated, complex time to parent. Now is the time. We need mothers learning and growing and equipping. We can't just send our kids out and say, put some dirt on it. We can't just put a screen in their hand and let it raise them. We need parents at their very best, fighting for Christ, fighting for His kingdom, bringing Jesus to our kids. And I know you have what it takes because Jesus is alive and active in you, Christian. Abide in Jesus, put your roots in Jesus so that you can flourish. Moms, you were made for this, to change the world. Sometimes we're gonna screw up. Moms, mentors, as friends, we fail. But Jesus died on the cross, and because of His grace, we are deeply loved, highly favored, greatly blessed, totally made right, and we are destined to reign because of Jesus. He says we are loved and we are His, and that is enough. So let's bring our best. And maybe you're here and you want what I'm describing. Maybe someone dragged you here and you're like, this is like the one time a year I come to church because it's what my mom wants. But you hear what I'm saying. Hear me saying that there is an identity that's not rooted in things, but comes from a power greater than our own. And if you want a relationship with Jesus, if you're wanting to know more about Him, there is a blue card on every seat. Maybe you just want prayer and you're like, man, I want to know God. I just need someone praying for me that I will continue to grow. If that's you, fill out that blue card, toss it into that bucket before you leave. There is nothing greater you could ever do than put your roots in Jesus, go all in with Him, and make Him your leader and forgiver. But before I end, I want to take a moment to pray over all the ladies in the room, a blessing over your lives. So in Hebron, ladies 13 and older, would you please stand? And the same in DeMont and Wheatfield online, please, I'd love for every lady 13 and older, would you stand so I can pray over you right now? Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for all the ladies. God, I just ask that you would make us a generation whose roots go so deep into your marvelous love that we would know how wide, how far, how deep your love is for us, that we would be bold, passionate, wholehearted in our devotion for you, that we would raise up the next generation to love and know you, that we would leave a wave in the kingdom of heaven because of the way we fiercely lived out our faith in you. And God, I just pray blessing upon blessing upon blessing to the women in this room, that they would know without a shadow of a doubt that you love them and they are your child. We love you so much, Jesus. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen.